This tree is Pistachia chinensis. That's Chinese pistache. And I'm showing you a street view first so that you can see how these are used along the street nicely. These are about 35 feet on center, it looks like. And they're almost head to head. They could be. I think they prune them some to kind of control that. And Chinese pistache is a really nice tree for a lot of different uses. One of the things about it is that it has a non-aggressive root system that's pretty deep and ends up over time. You can, it becomes quite drought resistant. You can use this in the desert, I've read. And but more importantly, you can use it in lawns. It's been used here along these sidewalks without any problem. And probably the most notable thing about this is its intense fall color that's very reliable. In our area, I'm in Northern California, Bay Area, inland, and this probably provides the biggest show in terms of fall color most years. That said, it's kind of hit or miss. If we don't get a good cold snap, sometimes these are a big disappointment, whereas like a flowering pear is good no matter what. And you can see here, this is first week in September, and you're starting to see some color in these already. We're still having warm days in the 90s right now. We haven't had any cool days, but our nighttime temperatures are in the 50s, and this seems to be sensing that there's a change coming. So usually the big show for these is in late September, October, when it really starts to cool down during the day as well as the evening. So this is an important distinction. If you look at that tree, and I'll get closer, there are seeds on some of these, and others there aren't any seeds. There's a variety that's called Keith Davy that is seedless, and I highly recommend that. Probably the biggest downside to this tree is the ones with seeds create quite a mess. And that one that you see over there, do you see how sparse that is? That's the other characteristic of the female. When you get those seeds all over the tree, two things happen. I find that the seeds drain the energy out of the tree, the foliage isn't as dense, and they're quicker to drop their leaves, and they don't color up as nicely. And then when they do drop their leaves, they look messy, just because they've got these seeds all over them that do turn red. I mean, that's interesting, but for me, it's not interesting enough to warrant the downside on how it looks. I mean, look at this tree, and then look at that one over there, and there's quite a difference in how full it looks, the shape, everything, and I find the ones that go to seed are much more likely to look irregular. And I'll talk about that. These have kind of a strange, gawky habit when they're young. You really need to work on them and get them looking, get the internal branching structure good as these are young. Otherwise, you can end up with the shape of a tree that's quite strange. These are professionally maintained because they're on a street. But if you're going to do these for a resident, you can see how the branching structure on that one right there, it's nicely done, but there's nothing predictable about it. If you look at pear trees, for instance, all of the branches are upright, and they kind of do that naturally. You don't really have to work on those. These are ones that need a little work at the beginning just to get them pushed in the right direction. Size-wise, what I like about these two, these are good for residential applications. I've got a friend, we put one in his front yard 15 years ago, and it's been easily maintained at about 15 feet wide, maybe 18 by about 20 feet tall. And that's a nice size for a lot of residential applications. So if you're looking for one that's manageable at that size, I'd tell you this is one of those. He hasn't had to work on that hardly at all to keep it at that size, and that's part of what's hard sometimes for residential applications, is to find trees that just don't get too big for the space.